Is the big box brokerage dying? And I'm not going to name any names here, but today's guest comes from a COO position of what was considered an independent brokerage, where I had gotten to know the owners pretty well. And I know a lot of them across a lot of different brokerages across the country. And they had big plans, and those plans have pivoted. And I know that there's a lot of you in the industry right now that are contemplating, where do I belong? Where should I plant my flag? Do I need to be with the big box for the resources? Can I go out to a small independent? Should I be with a teamage, I think as they're called? We're going to discuss all of that today and also help you understand some of the resources that exist in the marketplace that you don't maybe realize exists, and that you don't necessarily need to latch on to that big box, because there's a lot of tools out there in the world today. So without further ado, bringing on my good friend who has been on the show before, Cory Rosier with Big Block Realty based out of San Diego, California. What's up, buddy?
Yep. Hey, how you doing? Thanks, Jeff, for having me on. I appreciate it.
So first of all, as I said that, I was just realizing, did I say that right?
Yeah. Yep. COO of Big Block.
No,
yep.
Last name.
Rosier. Yes, you did
Rosier,
say
yeah,
it correct.
okay.
You're one of the few. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, good. I like to call you Cory Rosier, because
that works too. I answer to pretty much anything. So
you are a rosy guy. So first of all, Cory, welcome back. It's good to connect with you. We don't talk often enough anymore, but you guys, again, give us the story
Sure.
about Big Block and how you started, and where you thought you were going to go, and now where you've ended up, and then let's kind of get into this conversation.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again for having me on. Really appreciate it. So, Big Block Realty started, roughly about 14 or 15 years ago. Independent brokerage. We were a flat fee model. At our peak, got up to 1,400 agents, 100%. And we had aspirations to obviously started in San Diego. Then we grew and had 5 or 6 locations across California. Also ended up having 6 or 7 franchises within California and a couple that were outside of the state. And the goal was to really grow nationally, right? The goal was to grow nationally first through the franchise arms, and then actually just centralized and essentially doing everything ourselves, and growing it from a national footprint. What we found is that it was a lot more difficult than we anticipated, both on the franchise side and on the centralized side, for kind of 2 different reasons, but all in the kind of same atmosphere, in the sense that the world's kind of changing a bit, right? It's not what it used to be. I think the world of being an independent is much more difficult than it used to be. I think the world of being a big box brand, like any of the big boys, and again, not just to single any of them out, but we all know who they are, is also difficult. And I think that you're seeing, and we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, the evolution of these cloud-based, brokerages, EXPs, the Reals, the LPTs, the Ys, the Epics. I mean, the list goes on and on. And the formation of these teamages, right, where you see independents that are now becoming a teamage under one of these cloud-based brokerage, or powerhouse teams that are joining these as well, to give them that ability to keep their own brand and grow from a nationally based company, that are further along than companies like myself were.
At what point would you say did you all sit back? And there's 2 partners, right?
Correct.
And you basically run the show. At what point did the 3 of you sitting around, probably sitting bellied up to a bar, if I had to guess, and did you say to each other, I don't know that this is the direction anymore? When was that? Was it during COVID? Was it more recent? Like, when did that happen?
Yeah, great question. That was roughly about 6 months ago, give or take. Actually, closer to about 8 months ago, 9 months ago. Just started doing a lot of research on a lot of the cloud-based brokerages, and to be fully candid, we were utterly against them, and we're competing against them. So it really was. We believed that 100% shops would be able to go toe to toe with these, cloud-based brokerages that have, the downlines and stock and some of those other things, right? But once we started doing the due diligence and myself specifically, I realized how much further along, the particular company that we ended up merging with was, right? It was basically a mirror image of ourselves, um, that had at the time 12,000 agents. They were in 30 states, had a flat fee model, also had a rev share model, and were 12 months away from going public, and so they had pre-IPO stock. So all of the things that we wanted to do, we were almost in essence 3 years behind. So at that point, could we have chosen to continue to go and kind of fight that uphill battle, or could we merge with like-minded people? And the company that we ended up merging with, which was LPT, and there's a lot of different options out there, was as close to us as we'd ever met, agent-centric, fantastic people, and it really worked out. That's why we ended up making the decision to merge with them about 4 or 5 months ago.
So when you're looking at all of the different models, and we've really just scratched the surface on all that exists in the world, but I think it's safe to break it down. To me, there's three different types of brokerages. There's the big box, again, just a big company, and again, you know who they are. And I'll say it, Keller Williams, right? Remax, Century 21, Coldwell Banker, Berkshire Hathaway, to name a few. And I think those are the biggest of the big. Compass. Then you've got what now has emerged, which with EXP being the leader in the clubhouse and has been, but now there's been all kinds of copycat models that have emerged, as you mentioned. And then you've still got the independent. Would you say am I missing something? Is there a third segment of the real estate brokerage world?
No, I mean, listen, there's always nuances and things like that, but no, I think that that's really where we're at right now, right? You have the independents, you have the big box, the big boys, big girls, whatever you want to call it, and you have kind of the cloud base, right? And so there's different versions and hybrids of this, that, and the other, but I think that those are the three different variations right now. And it's interesting to see how the model is going. I'm happy to give you my 2 cents on kind of the franchise world. How I think that independents can still be successful, and kind of why people are really going to the cloud based, and they're kind of going in droves, which we've
Yeah.
seen over the last 4 or 5 years.
Well,
So
and by the way, I didn't mention why, which is another relative newbie. That's where Tristan. Obviously, you're listening to Lab Coat Agents podcast. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that. But I do want to ask that question because, and I want to preface it by saying this. First of all, I don't belong to any of them. So I like having these conversations because I come from a very neutral position, right? An agnostic position, which I've kind of really fought tooth and nail to stay. Cory knows this because we've had these conversations, as I've had with many other brokerages over the years. But I also want to say, Cory, and I think you would agree with me, that there isn't a right answer. So if like an agent is sitting there, or a team is sitting there, or an independent sitting out there contemplating this, there's not a right answer to what's right for you, right? Some people belong
150%.
big box, some
Yeah.
people belong independent, and some people are finding they belong cloud-based. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, let's segue to that because I would love to get your take on it. Now, everybody listening realized Cory does have some bias, but there's a reason why I chose Cory to have this conversation, because I knew Cory could have this conversation without sounding overly biased, unlike
Yes.
probably one of your partners who would be overly biased. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yes. Look, I think to your point, there are no wrong answers. I think that there are great things in all three. I think that there is uniqueness to all three, even within the microorganism of the bigger, cloud-based, all of these, independents, big box, you name it. So, and I also think it changes, right? Where you're at today, and maybe where you're at 3 years from now might not necessarily be the same thing. I also am the owner of Suite Assist, which is a real estate all-in-one solution for primarily independent brokerages, right? So I work with and coach some independent brokerages as well. So yeah, I think that I'm probably about as even keeled as it comes from like having this conversation of where I think, or where people should fit in, or when they should fit in and whatnot. But again, it's just my perspective. So um in my humble opinion, I think that the most important thing, no matter who you are, may it be a team lead or an independent agent is your brand and your culture, right? Who you are perceived to be out in the world. I still believe, and I've been saying this, and we said this on the last podcast, that buyers and sellers don't buy the brand behind them. They buy the agent. They buy the personality. They're not buying, the big box. They're not buying the cloud base. They might not even be buying, that teamage, right? They're buying essentially the brand that is created by the individual team lead and or agent, right? And I believe that that is huge. One, two. I believe that there are a lot of tools out there that people do not utilize. I think that ancillary services, for example, is something that a lot of independent brokerages, teamages, big box brokerages miss out on. When I say ancillary services, like we did some studies, there's like 97 services that actually surround the home that those particular vendors are looking, to essentially provide those services to buyers and sellers. And you as the team lead, you as the broker owner, you as the agent have the ability to monetize off of those, and you're not, right? And those are tools that are super important. Um, if I was to break it down, I think that independents, the way that they become successful in this particular market is they have to be niche and they have to be very heavy on their culture. And they have to really lean into that, because I think that people are staying with the independents because of that cultural aspect, right? Um, I think now again, all three of these can have culture. So I'm just saying this is kind of specific to that. I think one of the things that is becoming difficult for the big boxes is I believe that the franchise model is slowly kind of going away, which is becoming more and more difficult, because I think that people want their own brand of that teamage within, essentially a brokerage, and don't necessarily want the liability, nor do they want to, for better lack of terms, run a brokerage, right? If they can have the tools to do all of the things that they want and create their own brand and give just a percentage to the brokerage to run all the back end, great, with no liability. And I think that that leads me to why a lot of the cloud-based brokerages are so successful right now, right? Because you can keep your culture. You have a lot of these tools, again, using LPT just because that's where we went, the listing power tools, the different things that they offer, right? CRMs. But again, like there are a lot of tools and a lot of different things that you can utilize to make sure that you're giving the best tools to your agents, which includes training, right? It includes events. It includes things like video, email, direct mail. So you're staying in front of your database, you're staying top of mind, which you're, obviously, great at, Jeff, right? That's something that you guys focus on. Um, Creating those events and stuff like that, that you're interacting in the culture, right? I think that COVID obviously changed that, but I think that people still want that, obviously, the meeting together and getting together and stuff like that. And then there's like obviously AI, which we could talk about for days. I think that in my humble opinion, AI is great, but you still need to pick up the phone. You
Mhm.
still need to call someone. You still need to, shake someone's hand. You still need to meet them in person, even though the AI is making things easier. I still believe that that is not gone, and I think that that is a huge, huge thing, that is sometimes missing, with some of these, agents and brokerages and teams. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So if I had to back you into a corner and say, as a real estate agent again, or again a team lead or whatever, however you want to describe someone out there, what would you, if you had to list, and this can come from your own personal experience, what are the top three features that you would be looking for if and when you were deciding it's time for you to make a move?
Yeah. First and foremost, customer support, right? Support both from, we'll just say from broker questions, compliance, things of that nature, as well as, just day-to-day operational aspects of using this or that system. I think that that is huge. Two, which is very close, is the culture. I think that the culture is huge. And I think that like for us, Big Block still has a culture, right? So we are a team within a larger organization, but we run as if we're our own teamage, right? We still have our own culture. We still have our own offices. We still have our own events. We still have our own trainings. We have all those different things while also being able to attach onto the national level of things. And then, again, this is it's kind of funny. Of course, everyone wants recognition, but I also do think that commission's important, especially in this particular market. It's obviously been tough for the last 2.5, 3 years. I feel like every dollar counts, and I do think that commission's important, while also having the ability to invest in yourself for the long run, which is one of those things in real estate that just doesn't happen, right? It's kind of like being a bartender, right? 30 years down the road, all of a sudden you're 60 years old and you go, well, I don't have a retirement plan. So with some of this pre-IPO stock and some of these different things that you can create, I do think it's super important. So
You bring up a good point there because you're right. I mean, I think a lot of agents, I don't want to label anybody here, but I think one of the first things that comes to mind as an individual agent, oftentimes, and I would say almost definitely in the top three, is going to be commission, is going to be what's my split. And then I do believe that over the years, a lot of agents have done exactly what you just described is, well, I'm going to max that out. I'm going to try to get as much as I possibly can, which invariably means you're going to give something up as a result. And typically when you go to a max commission situation, there's very little left. There's very little margin left for the broker, for the owner, or the company to provide resources now for you to have retirement. And
right.
do you think you have your finger on the pulse far more than I do of the day to day? Do you think that is becoming more important to agents as we kind of continue forward in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, in regards to the retirement aspect of things, or
the ability to earn like that rather than just earning off of the sale.
Yeah, 150%. And I think that shifted, and it's still shifting about 3 or 4 years ago, right? And to your point, I think EXP was the first one, right? I think Real was kind of right behind them, right? I mean, again, but yes, I think that agents are looking for the ability to rev share, right? And I've seen this in independent brokerages, in Suite Assist and stuff like that. They have a rev share, they have some kind of referral model of bringing agents in, things of that nature. So I do think yes, and I also like, to my point, the ancillary services that are huge untapped ability for team leads and agents to be able to monetize off of things that their clients are already purchasing. Now, yes, of course, RESPA compliant. I'm not trying to do anything that's outside of the box here, just to be clear as my disclaimer. But yeah, I think that's huge. And I think also, having stock, right? Because stock is something, even if it takes 3 years to vest, is something that, okay, well, it can be bequeathable or transferable to your children. It has a tangible value to it, right? And but I also think that, production should always be what the agents focus on, right? Like I can tell you, like with our team, one of the things that we do is we focus everything on production. And then if we have an agent that's interested in possibly joining our team, we do that heavy lifting for our other agent, because we want them to focus on production, not focus on recruiting. I do think that when some of the agents focus too much on recruiting as opposed to production, that really changes the landscape, and it shouldn't be like that, in my opinion. It should be production, 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 while also being able to monetize off of some of these other options or different things that you have available to you. That makes sense.
Becomes attraction more than it does recruiting when you do
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
Now,
Otherwise, you're just focusing on recruiting.
I want to digress too and you mentioned and I know what you mean when you said AXP was first. I would argue it was really more like a Keller Williams or
sure.
Exit Realty. They had a model, might still have a model. I'm not sure. But that leads me back to the elephant in that room, which I would argue has put a nasty taste in many real estate agents' mouths, which is recruiting, which is you've got these, for lack of a better way to describe them, mediocre at best producers who got swayed with this pie in the sky that was never going to happen, because how in the hell is somebody who's closing a transaction a month or less going to recruit or attract anyone other than with more pie in the sky bullshit? And so what would you say to that? Because I know for fact, because I've known you guys for a number of years, you guys had that nasty taste in your mouth towards an EXP.
Yeah.
And so I think you can resonate with this, with those agents who feel that way. What is your reaction to the agent who says, ew, like disgusting, never. I would never go to one of those brokerages that have downlines.
Yeah, great question. And I think and again, I'm going to speak from my personal experiences, maybe a little bit biased, right? But like when you look at LPT, there are two different plans. There is 100% option where you are not, in the rev share portion of things. You're focusing, all on production. You're not recruiting, right? You're not getting any rev share. Yes, you can build your, we'll call it downline or whatever, over time if you so choose, but you're not rev sharing, right? You're taking 100% of your commission home. Or you can do more of the traditional 80/20 where you are building that downline because you're focusing on trying to get that rev share, trying to get, maximize the pre-IPO stocks and things of that matter. So, what I really liked about that for us is it was both options. It was a true hybrid, which I had not seen before. I hadn't seen both options because we came from 100% background. But I think that optionality is great, right? And it's like, hey, I can start on this side, and then if I want to move to this side, great. But it still does not change the fact that agents should be focused on production. That you should be getting into the real estate industry because you want to close houses. Right now, that can be part-time. It doesn't have to be full-time, or it can be full-time, but real estate is hard. Everyone go, oh my gosh, my mom wants to sell her house, so I'm gonna get my license. And I see that I can make a commission in Southern California, it's $20,000, right? Great. Well, yeah, but what do you do after that? Right. And this is where, you're always talking about this. Build your brand, right? Your sphere of influence is something that is so underutilized across the board of just doing these videos, posting on social media, right? Doing reels. I mean, this is something that you do and I've started to do, right, recently because that's where it's at and staying in front of, you know, uh, your your group of people, right? Your tribe, for better lack of terms. And I spoke to somebody the other day who actually had the ability to sit down with the founder of Instagram, and they said, "Hey, what is what is the whole equation, right? What is the actual deal here is to get the max output?" And he goes, "Honestly, just keep posting." Right, like
Mm.
at the end of the day, the yes,
Mm.
there's obviously there's different things, this, that, and the other, but the more content that you're putting out, the better. And I think that again, we're losing a little bit of that, right? Like why don't you do that? Like why do you not do that? Why people are buying because they like you. It doesn't matter what you're selling. And that's to me what has like it will never change. People buy people. They don't buy the service behind it. So don't get into real estate to, if you want, I recruited for 4 years for Big Black, right? I did 1,600 presentations, recruited 1,200 agents. It was exhausting. It was a full-time job, but I never did a real estate deal, not once. But I was exclusively a recruiter. So if you want to be a recruiter, be a recruiter. You want to close deals, be a real estate agent. If you have some people that come in and they go, oh, hey, I really like what you're doing. Do you have a great place that you're at? Cool. Kick them over here and let us do the heavy lifting for you, but focus on production.
That's it's a great statement because the truth is most, well, again, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of real estate agents have gotten into the business for the wrong reasons. Like very few people listening to this that are licensed real estate professionals can say they were 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, 22 years old and said, I am preparing myself to become a real estate agent. That just, especially our generation, Cory, because it just,
Right.
you went to college back then. Nowadays,
Yeah.
maybe it's a little bit more common or less,
Right.
more common than it was, still not massively common, but most real estate agents, it's a career shift. And it's a career shift because you see dollar signs, you see flexibility, freedom. And for those last two reasons are the primary reason, in my opinion, why most aren't successful because they're not
Right.
disciplined. And so I love what you said. Like if you're going to become a real estate agent, become a real estate agent because you want to sell houses.
Yeah.
And the ancillary piece of being a real estate agent is you got to become a marketer. You got to become a
Right.
networker. You got to become a transaction coordinator. You got to become a negotiator. Like all these things that are all entailed inside of being a real estate agent. And I don't want to understate that because I think that's a powerful statement.
Yeah, and I think that to your point of what you just said is a great lead in. Those who control the transactions control the ancillary services. So that's how you monetize, not just necessarily within the transaction, but around it, right? If you're increasing production, I mean, look, if you're like, hey, I want to talk to someone that did 6,000 transactions as a teamage or brokerage last year, or one that did 1,000, who are you going to have on your show, Jeff? You're going to have one that did 6,000 because they did more production, right? So at the end of the day, I do think that gets lost. And I think that like the tools and some of those different things is when you look at some of these different organizations, when you look at the three different sectors, what fits you best, right? There are independents out there that are charging splits of 60-40, and you cannot get those agents to leave that independent because they are so entrenched in the culture, they are entrenched in the leadership, they are entrenched in the way the organization is run from a family perspective that they are unrecruitable. And that is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
And that particular brokerage, I'm not going to name them by name, has 20 agents, right? But they're all closing 30 transactions a year, and everybody's happy and everybody's successful and everyone's making money. Nothing wrong with that, right? So again, I think that focusing on production is huge. And then when you go to some of these different tools, simple is best, right? Like, when we kind of revamped our platform that was specific just to independents to now more teamages. And we even talked with you, Jeff, right? It's a whole centralized hub that is customizable for you to be able to run your teamage or brokerage. What does that entail? Well, you need some kind of community, right? A way to communicate with one another. You need a calendar that so you can see the different dates, events, things like that. You need a way to be able to train your agents, right? You need to provide certain things like obviously transaction management tools, digital signing aspects, things like that. And then again, things like video email, direct mail, ways that you can stay in front of your database, a marketplace for these ancillaries. This is not, overwhelming stuff, but it's a centralized hub all in one place to be able to run that teamage or brokerage so that you can be uber successful. May it be within another organization or that is your organization, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And then it's a decent segue, I think. And I felt like you were segueing over there, which you mentioned the terminology, and you've said it multiple times, is creating other revenue streams, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's more applicable to what you're going to talk about, more to a team lead, a broker owner, a team, that sort of thing, versus the individual agent. But I think there's a place, an opportunity for everyone. And so, as you mentioned earlier, which does also give you somewhat of an agnostic position because you do have ownership in a platform that you sell to competitors. Let's just
Right.
call it out like it is. And
Sure.
obviously, the platform needs to be robust and strong enough so that those competitors aren't threatened by the fact that they are, using a platform that is owned by some guys that own an independent, or at the time was an independent. And so
Sure.
as we shift into that and some of those opportunities, also resources, talk to both here and talk to what exists out in this marketplace. Obviously, you're going to be specific and biased to Suite Assist. There are other platforms, but tell us about that. Tell us about what they may not know is out there.
Yeah, I think that, and again, this is my humble opinion, right, on certain things. So, like, if I was to break these down, you hear things like, "I need a website." Okay, well, I think that people say that they need a website, and I think that that's more positioning than it actually is that you need a website. I think that yes, you need something that is public facing, right? So know that you are legitimized, I guess, for better lack of terms. But then you use the word like CRM. I feel like some of these CRMs are killing an ant with a bazooka, right? In terms of all of the all of the functionality that they have that is overwhelming, and you get in there, and agents are spending a gazillion dollars on these, and they're not utilizing 85% of the tools. So I think from there, more of a simplistic approach that stays in front of more of a warm sphere of influence, right? Things that are touch points, maybe text, maybe AI calling, right? Maybe uh, again, tasks that you need to fulfill where you're still picking up the phone and calling. I think that all of those things are, and then again, things like, if you did 12 mail pieces to stay in front of your database, like that is huge. Like people still open mail. They actually get excited to open mail. You know what I mean? Like it actually still exists and still super successful. The video email portion, very well, right? Like if you're doing 2 or 3 videos a month, right? Or maybe even one a month or 2 a month, huge, right? But again, posting on social media, being you, being funny, having people buy you for who you are. Like you do a bunch of fun stuff. You do stuff that's you, some of it's golfing, some of it's with your family, right? Some of it's the workouts. It's basically like a play-by-play of all the different things that you're allowing people into your right persona of
Mhm.
who you are.
Mhm.
Which I think is huge. And then again, some of the things that I mentioned is the tools that you need, right? There are listing presentations, right? You need buyer presentations, right? I think that presentations are extremely important, right? I think that having continuity and consistency in what your presentation is to your list to your buyer or seller is huge, right? So being specific to that, I do think the different packages that you have available, like some of these packages that are out, like again, using LPT, which stands for Listing Power Tools, you could buy this box. Literally, all I have to do is pay for the shipping. And the thing's amazing. That like if you were to put it in front of someone goes, wow, this is a legitimate agent, right? Because they took the time, effort, energy to spend all of this money on collateral that I'm presenting to a buyer or seller. It matters. It does make a difference. That is important. So I think that, again, in regards to the tools, they are just what they sound like, which is tools, right? Like, again, like make it your own in terms of what you do. Have a CRM that is very specific and, straight to the point of what you need to do. You don't need to do 14,000 different things of bells and whistles. You need to follow up, you need to pick up the phone, you need to text people, and you need to humanize it, right? Like at the end of the day, it's great to have these sequences where all these texts are going out. But for example, someone brought this up to me the other day. They go, a text goes out to you, Jeff, and it says, hey, I saw that you were looking at a house that looks like 123 Cherry Lane. Are you interested in buying? And you say, no, I'm not, but my mother is. Well, that text is static and has no idea how to respond to that.
The AI or the
The
automation?
AI would, the AI could, right? With some of these tools that are coming out, but some of the static texts, they don't. But again, I also believe that there's a point where you can bring the AI. A lot of this AI stuff is cool and it's awesome, but there is a point where the AI, where someone puts their hand up, right? And I was just having this conversation with someone the other day. All I want my technology to do is keep it consistent in terms of the follow up till I get someone that has some sort of interest, and then it's on me. That I'm picking up the phone, I'm calling, I'm texting, I'm emailing. Not saying that follow up sequences and those different things and putting them in funnels doesn't help, but like the personalized touch, I believe, is lost. And like, don't lose that because I still believe that's the people that win. And to your point, like we are talking about real estate agents, like a lot of these guys and girls are working how much on the weekends? From 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock on a Saturday or Sunday. But most people that get their license don't think about that. So I think that the tools that you have is, and again, a centralized hub where you have the ability to create this culture, the different tools that you're presenting for your agents, may they be on your team or brokerage or whatnot, is to me, I think needs to just be consistent with what you're trying to achieve. So, for example, right, like I'm more of a sphere of influence guy. Other people are leads people, right? So, two completely different ecosystems. We have a really good friend that runs a very, very lucrative, successful team platform, right? So, and his is all about leads, and that works. So, again, there's nothing right or wrong. I guess, again, it just depends on how you want to approach it.
Yeah, to each their own, right? So I don't think we really dove too deep into the opportunity to also now monetize by using a platform like this. So for somebody who's maybe sitting out there who is that brokerage who's struggling to bring revenue in the traditional model
Mhm.
because there's just not enough margin, how do you do that through a platform like a Suite Assist?
Yeah. So a couple different ways. So we like created one, a public facing marketplace. So you can create your own marketplace. You can bring in these preferred vendors or, partners or whatever you want to refer to them as ancillaries. You could either monetize with them on a more of an affiliate perspective, right? Essentially, as they close deals, you're getting a percentage of it, or you could put them on a monthly fee that's reoccurring, right? And usually put them, in at least my experience, anywhere from a 90 to 120-day contract with the goal of being, hey, if they're going to pay me a monthly fee, they're getting X amount of business, and based off of that return on investment or ROI, I'm going to renegotiate up after 90 or 120 days. And then in our system, the way that we do it is we are constantly utilizing or trying to create exposure for those ancillaries. So we do it a number of different ways. One, there's banners that are constantly scrolling throughout the system of those preferred partners. One, two, you can create your own public facing marketplace, which is its own URL of your own marketplace that you create, right? That you can give to clients, right? Buyers or sellers for, think of home services, and there's a gazillion: flooring, painters, windows, landscaping, carpets. I mean, it goes, the list goes on and on and on of those different things. We also have functionality in our system that when the agent or TC is creating the transaction, it literally says, "Are you interested in using any of our preferred vendors?" If yes, it automatically sends a lead directly to that preferred vendor, right? So really kind of easy, kind of cool tool. You could track all the preferred vendors in the back end. So you could pull a report to see which of your agents are using which of those preferred relationships, which I always really like, because the easiest way to kind of create or go after ancillaries, I always get this question, it goes, well, how do I know which preferred vendors to work with? Let your agents tell you. Agent goes up and we have an intranet aspect of the platform, right? The community part where it goes, hey, I'm looking for an inspection company. Well, three agents come up and they go, I use Johnny Inspection Company, I use Johnny Inspection Company, I use Johnny Inspection Company. If I don't have Johnny Inspection Company in my Rolodex or my marketplace, who am I calling? Johnny Inspection Company. Hey, you came referred from three of our agents. Would love to go ahead and bring you into the brokerage and make you an exclusive or preferred vendor for us. How does that sound? Sounds great, right? So, things like that, I think that the preferred relationships, and there's a lot of these, even ones that like we have that are simple. Like I have my own transaction management company, right? Well, through our transaction management company, team lead, broker, make 10% every single transaction. Great, right? There's things like that. Print shop, you have your own print shop, you can make 5% off of that, right? And the list goes on, right? I mean, there's so many different ways to monetize through these, and there's different programs like solar programs where the agent can monetize, and so can the team leader brokerage. So there's different ways that agents can monetize, on these different things, depending on if they're RESPA compliant or not RESPA compliant. So, right, we talked about the MSA world for forever, Jeff, and obviously creating some of those different things in terms of lending when you were kind of more focused on lending. So obviously lending, obviously, title and escrow is a little bit tougher unless you have ownership, but there's so many different ways that you can monetize on these different transactions, and some of the things that we talk about and trade on within the platform.
Almost like, yeah, as you mentioned, it's an eye opener, really. And if you're missing that, if your eye was not on that ball, right? It's not too late. But like, so Cory, if somebody was listening to this and just thought to themselves, and whether you're an agent for maybe an independent who that your broker who you love to be with, Cory, the same person Cory described earlier, who's on a 60-40 split, but you're never leaving because you're so well entrenched. But that broker is getting squeezed by what's going on in the industry, and you want to help that broker stay in business, or you are a team lead, you want to be a team lead, you are a broker. What does somebody have to do if they want to learn more about this?
Yeah, I mean, just go to Sweet Assist, sweet like the candy, assist like a soccer or basketball assist.com. And the whole platform is positioned to not actually be a cost for you. It's actually built to be a profit maximizer. The whole goal is for it actually to be something that you monetize off of, not a cost. And to your point, right, everybody's different. So like everything's included. I don't believe in nickel and diming. I don't believe in long-term contracts. Don't believe in onboarding fees. And really, really heavy on the customer support side where you actually give your own personal customer service person. So the whole point is to create your own centralized hub so that you can create essentially your own experience for your team, for your brokerage, right? Whatever that may be. Or if you're just like I said, like a team within a bigger organization and you want that centralized hub for you and your agents, great. And to your point, yeah, if you're an individual agent and you're like, man, I wish we had some of these tools, check it out and get your broker to kind of come on because I think it could be something that could be super beneficial for you as well.
Yeah, it's massively robust. I mean, I've sat through these presentations a number of times, and it's honestly it's more than you'd use.
I agree.
But would you? So one last question about that. You've got a lot of clients. You guys have been around the block now for a number of years. What would you say is probably the top one or two features that people say, oh, that's the sticky piece. That's the piece that is the needle mover within my brokerage.
So yeah, it depends. So if you're a broker, right, I believe that the transaction management aspect of it, because at its core it is a transaction management system, right? So it has the ability to have customizable commission plans, flat fees, percentages, tiers, referral fees, all have capping capabilities, all auto-populate out of that DA, CDA, or funding request, right? Do have the ability to automatically send out documents that can get executed. Also can ACH, your agents directly from your bank account into the agent's bank account free of charge. It connects with QuickBooks, also has automated onboarding, with a W-9 that automatically saves, and you can do subscriptions through integration through Stripe. So if you're like a broker owner that's running the back end aspect, I believe that is that whole back end aspect while also providing the agent tools is huge, right? I believe that our back end, and again, I'm paraphrasing and kind of talking quickly in regards to the different things that we have here, is second to none. In regards to a team lead that is not doing transaction management, I think it's the focusing on the different tools, which is what I just mentioned. Your own customizable, colors, right? Your own customizable, CRM, your own customizable, community that you can create, your marketplace that you can create, your training room with a learning management system that you can assign quizzes at whatever percentage you set forth in order to complete that course, lesson, or module, right? To create your own, we talked about this with you, Jeff, right? Your own video drafts, right? That you can apply to all of your different, databases. Either the team lead can do it, or you could do it on your own. The digital signing aspect and the CRM components, right? With customizable, different KPIs and things like that. So I think it's kind of built for both. It just depends on, if you're coming in as more of a team lead, with that centralized hub and your own URL and all that good stuff, or if you're coming in as essentially a broker to run your backend. All the things are included regardless, but those are just kind of two different points for two different people that are coming in.
I love it. Cory, if somebody wants to get connected to you from either perspective, really any perspective, he's just a good dude. He's a good guy to hang out with too, if you're in the San Diego area. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I would say email me. So Cory, just CORY at sweetassist.com. That's probably the best way. Or if you want to schedule a demo, you can do that. And I'm also, that's probably the best way. But all my stuff's in my signature line from there, and happy to kind of discuss, anything. And I know it sounds, kind of cliche, but really I'm someone that actually try to build a network and a people person, right? So at the end of the day, if it works for you, great. If not, no worries at all. I want it to make sense, and especially if you're going to be running your organization through it. So
you mentioned you're kicking up your social presence. Where are you doing that at? What's like the foundational platform for you?
yeah, Instagram, primarily Instagram right now. So obviously Instagram, and then Instagram will go, to Facebook and whatnot. So I'm still a novice on that, but trying to get on more podcasts like this. And my brand marketing guy is like, all right, it's time for you to get out there. So I'm like, all right. So it was behind the scenes for a lot of years, Jeff.
I love it. Hey, you know what I say to you? It's about damn time.
So
Cory, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I mean, it's a conversation that not a lot of us are having because, again, it's, everybody gets their guard up so easily. But I think it's important to listen and hear and learn. And hopefully this was useful to many of you today. And Cory, thanks again for being on, and I look forward to staying in touch as always.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. And again, yeah, I hope that this is helpful. So thanks again. Have a great one.